Shut up and sit down.
Howdy guys, it's Andy from Bigmeks Workshop and Painting Studio, and this is about the 15th time I've tried to start this video off. Doing a Death Guard Nurgle Classic Dreadnought, and I start off with Castellan Green. As always, anything we do with the airbrush can be done by hand, it's just that bit easier. Now, I will apologise, there is one section that I do miss out, but we'll come to that very shortly. But this is done with a good coat of Castellan Green to give a classic Nurgle Death Guard colour, what everyone knows and loves from across the years. This particular weapon is a converted Loyalist rocket launcher, which Dodge kindly converted up to make it look like it's something that would fit alongside the rest of the weaponry. And the skin work was done in Steel Legion Drab. Now this gives you a really dirty skin colour, oversprayed onto the green as well, just to make it stand out a little bit more. And just going over nice and gentle, couple of layers, ever so fine, just to bring that colour up and get you a really nice patchy colour. I do apologise, off camera I did do a 45-degree highlight with Deathworld Forest. Didn't get any footage on that, I do apologise, but it was just a gentle highlight with Deathworld Forest all over. But onto the flesh work, and this is Talon Sand. Again, working from about 45 degrees up, all over the flesh, all over the bone, bringing that highlight in from a really good angle, just allowing it to overspray onto the green as well. So this all adds to the blending work later on. So here we are, a little bit more Talon Sand coming onto the rocket launcher section, getting that highlight really nice. Really bringing out those interesting dull brown colours what you get, and you get some very mucky sort of stained flesh. Really going for a very horrible discoloured looking sort of skin. Okay, and now on to the difficult bits, shall we say. So I'm having to do things properly now. This is Reekland flesh, and it's going all over the flesh and the bone like colours. I'm really focusing towards the outside edges to get that sort of wound, open wound sore sort of effect, bringing the blends from the overspray into the fold with the colours again. As you can see, I've gone back with the Deathworld Forest just to bring all the greens back into the original colours. So next is what we one of our variant of toilet water colours, and this is Reekland and Aphonian Camo Shade. And as you can see, I'm doing this on the outside of the wounds more than on the inside, and that brings that sort of soreness to the flesh work and starts to blend the green in with the browns, and you get a really cool, interesting colour when it all starts to add together. And further on, I've added just straight Aphonian now into the sections of the armour, blending that Reekland out of the Aphonian mix around the outside edges of the wounds, really toning the red colours to a more of a green. And finally, I've mixed the second variant of our toilet waters, which is Aphonian and non-oil, and I'm adding them to the deepest recesses on the insides of the wounds. And it really adds to a real deep, dark, dingy, mouldy sort of injury-looking section on the model. Now, all of these washes were mixed with thinner to give me more control over the washes, so I did build them up very gently. Yeah, it was we use live colour thinner for this. We also use the same for our airbrush, and this is now going back over the metal sections with Death Guard Green through the airbrush, just centering all over the hot spots, and I'm trying to avoid as much overspray as possible, although that is not catastrophic if that does happen. And I'm just laying down some really nice bright highlights into the sections. And now I'm using Death Guard Green with the airbrush, by hand, onto the edges of the armour plating to add a slightly stronger highlight. I didn't want to go over the top with this, which is why I've gone from airbrush to hand, using the same colour. Again, I'm using straight out of the airbrush mix, so it's really thin down. And it's something I've taken to doing is using the airbrush airbrush style paint of the appropriate consistency by hand as well. Once I've got the edge highlights done with the Death Guard green, I now go on to Nurgle green, which is a slightly brighter colour, and I'm just starting to reinforce those edge highlights all over the model to really bring them out and make them look really not too vibrant, but to make them look like they stand out a little bit. And I've added a touch of dead flesh to this Nurgle green, just for the final edge highlights all over the sharp points on the armour plating. And I'm just building this up now ever so gentle. I'm using a 00 Winslow Newton at this point, just to make sure I get a good quality finish on the edges. And I'm making sure that if I do go over the top with it, I'm just getting a bit of water onto my brush and just thinning it all out again, just to blend those colours back in. So onto the warts at this point, and I fancied doing something a little bit different to complement the green. So I've gone for Demonette Hide to make them look like a really horrible spot wart thing. Adding that purple to it really makes it look disgusting. A really bruised, sort of unpleasant wound. And for the silver work, it is oily steel as its base. I'm just going all over the metalwork, getting it a good quality finish all over there. Now, thinking back, possibly would have been a good idea to do the silver work first with the airbrush, when I can go over the front sections with the by hand. But it doesn't take too long to do it to do this, as just blocking out silver is a fairly straightforward job. Once the oily steel's down, all over the engine sections, and do this exact same thing onto the last cannon and some of the detail work on the last cannon. I'm just again making sure that I get a good quality coat all over it. Oily steel's a Vallejo paint, and it is a really nice one, but it's equally easily replaced with lead belcher, which does roughly the same colour. So start to do the trim work, and this is Warp Block Bronze, adding that sort of red to the armour really is complementary to green, so the bronze is a really good colour for it, and it just adds a little bit of life to the trim, and just starts to separate these flat colours what are across the model. So here we are, all the trim's been done with the Warlock Bronze, all the silver's been done as well, and we have got something what is starting to look a bit like a robot, albeit a very unpleasant looking one. So now I'm going back in with the Euphonian and non-oil into all the recesses around the armour plating, even onto the engine sections as well. Get it really grimy looking. So this would normally be done with just a straight non-oil, but because it's a Nurgle vehicle, we didn't want it looking too clean, so the Euphonian camo shade really adds to that. Okay, this is a colour what Dodge particularly hates. This is Gory Red. Now just be aware, this is a gloss paint for some reason. I don't know why. I seem to have a gloss batch. It doesn't say gloss on the pot, but it does dry in a very glossy finish, so if you don't like the gloss effect, you will need to whack a matte varnish on at some point once you are ready for finishing up. Okay, and around the warts is Drushi Violet by GW. This is a really deep, rich purple, so you get a real nice wash around the warts. And what I'm doing is, because it's thinned down with the thinners, I'm pulling it out onto the green as well, to get you a bit of a translucent sort of green blend into the purple. whilst I'm waiting for the washes to dry, it is Vallejo's Flat Red as a first highlight onto the Gory Red. Now, even though this is actually a matte, the gloss effect does come through onto the from the reds. So yeah, you do have to think about what you're doing in advance. You'd be just as well off using Corn Red for the base and then Mephiston for this highlight. But I wanted to use different colours to what we've been using recently. Once that's down, it is Red Tone by Vallejo, Army Painter. Although this is quite easily replaced with Caribou Crimson, as it's much the same colour. Red Tone seems to be a little bit darker, so it's a little bit better for this sort of work, but you get the same sort of effect. Okay, so onto the spots again. Once the first layer of Drushy Violet's dried out, it is beige going onto the real points of the warts, and this adds a really nasty sort of very raw wart or spot looking thing on the armour. It really makes the purple start to stand out alongside the rest of the thing. And then I tone it all back down again with Drushy Violet around the edges, again thinned down and pulled out towards some of the onto the armour plating as well, but only a couple of millimeters. You don't want to go over the top with this, and it just stretches that paint, really blends it out a bit, and you get a really cool sort of disgusting finish to it. Okay, back onto the flesh work, and it is Reekland Flesh Shade, and I'm getting into all the deeper recesses of the model, trying to tone them that flesh tone up to make it look even more sore than it already did. Get it really, really vibrant and unpleasant looking. And the Reekland Flesh Shade does a real good job of this, and it adds a lot of real rich tones to the colours what are already there. And the final colour on the red sections is Vermilion. It probably work equally well with Evil Sun's Red. You get the similar sort of colour without the gloss undertones from Gory. And all I'm doing is just adding some edge highlights to it, just to bring those colours together. So back onto the trim, and this is Brass Scorpion. Obviously this is a colour I've used in combination like this a lot, and the reason behind this is it just really works well over the Warlock Bronze, and you get a real nice good quality finish over it. It really changes the colour of the Warlock Bronze, so you get that nice dark undertone with a sort of an orangey colour at top. So back onto another wash, and this is an Euphonian Camo Shade and Non-Oil and Agrax as well. And I do 2 layers of this. Again, this is thinned down with the thinners to allow me to get better control over the wash, and it also means that when you do layer it up, you don't get any thick, cloudy puddles on the model. Then it is Bright Bronze by Vallejo, and this is going onto the upper sections of the trim and the weapon as the first of the 2 major highlights. And it's just adding a real rich orangey sort of colour to the metalwork, just to bring it out and just separate it from the rest of the model, make it look a bit more interesting. The final edge highlight was done with Bright Brass, and that was aimed towards all the extreme points of the trim, just to add that final little shine where the light would catch onto the areas, just to bring it all together. Now you can go up even higher if you wish, adding a touch of silver into the brass colours if you want, but I was quite happy with the colour what I'd got here. Now that same wash of Euphonian, Null and Agrax again is going over the top, just to blend all the highlights together, and just to make sure it looks suitably dirty. And as you can see, I'm going over all of the brass sections. If I do touch onto the green or the armor plating, don't worry, because it's all colours what you're using across the armor anyway. So as long as you don't leave any streaks, it'll look okay. So next onto the fleshwork again. This is a 50-50 mix of Talan sand and Cadian flesh, and this starts to add to the highlights to the model. As you can see, I'm just aiming towards the raised sections on the eyelids. Adding that little pinky colours from the Cadian allows you to get that a subtle transitional highlight on there. And then I'm adding just pure Cadian to the next layer, and picking out the highlight sections as well, all over the inside of the gun, inside of the damaged sections where the flesh is starts to show through. And as you can see, I'm just aiming towards the sort of real fine raised sections of it, of the sort of the weird skin graft looking things. Next is Drushi Violet into the sections of the skin again, really making that flesh work look really sore. The purple really adds a nice sort of flesh type bruising to the model, and you start to get a real interesting skin tone around the model, especially around the eye sections, which are quite standoutish and really weird looking. So it is now red tone, and I'm focusing that towards the bottom sections of the flesh to add it, make the thing look a little bit bloodshot and really unpleasant. So adding the red tone as well to the warts as well, just to finally finish off the wart look and make them extra vile. But the red coming from the red tone, it really accentuates that transition from the armour to the warts, and you get a very cool effect. On to the eyes now. I'm using Vallejo's green grey. I wanted it to be a very sort of unpleasant colour for an eye, not a straight white, because that would look a little bit weird. So I've got that sort of a slight green tone to it, and I'm just cleaning up any mistakes I'm making as I go. So I'm just building up those eye sockets, nice and gentle with an unpleasantly off-white. As you can see, I'm using just a standard black to add some kind of like cat's eyes or demonic eyes to pupils to the eyes, and just to make it look a bit more weird and creepy. A little bit of red tone onto the eyes as well. This allows you to this gets a sort of a subtle, I was trying for a subtle sort of bloodshot look. Don't know how that came out, you'll have to decide for yourselves. It was a bit of an experiment on my part, trying to get a little bit of a red to just tone through on the eyes themselves. So onto the skulls and the horns, which there are many of. I did probably miss several, but it's just because there's that many. Some of them are really small, some of them are really obvious. So it is Ubshabti bone onto the horns, and the skull works as the base colour. Also onto the teeth as well. So back onto the Agrax and Aphonian wash onto the skull work to make them look dirty and filthy, but also add the shade to them as well. I didn't want a clean wash to it, so I mixed a couple of different colours together and get you to add a shade, but also to look particularly unpleasant as well. Whilst I'm waiting for the washes to dry, back onto the straight silver work, which is Chainmail. by Vallejo. Now this is equally usable as Ironbreaker as the first highlight for the metalwork. Didn't want to go over the top, so I only put 2 highlights onto the metalwork, as I wanted the metal to look really dull and generally unusable. Up shafty bone onto the horns again. Really thin, and I'm also starting about halfway up, just to let some of that wash show through on this particular horn. It lets you get it, because it's such a good sculpt. It's got some of the there's a sort of a grain effect on there. The wash really does a good job of pulling it out and showing through. I'm doing exactly the same sort of thing onto the skulls on the Nurgle Sigil as well, just to get that sort of bright, vibrant look what you expect. So another wash onto the metalwork, which is null oil. I use a straight null on this one. It's already had some of the dirty undertones on there, so I didn't need to go over the top with any more filth. So it's just a good old null oil on that one. And then the edges of the metalwork are highlighted in chrome. I also went back and did a little bit of highlighting work onto the bonework as well, with a bit of Screaming Skull, just to finish off those bone sections and make them look that bit more impressive. So I hope you like what you see. I hope this is the sort of thing what you would like to watch again. Got a couple of thank yous to make. Obviously to our Patreons, which are Joe Spearpoint, Warren Brunsden, Ludwig Offbauer and the Orc Boys. Thank you for your assistance, guys, and all the other Patreons as well. We do appreciate anything you offer, as it just allows us to keep on doing what we're doing. Also, please check out our affiliate link, which is The Outpost in Sheffield, and they do reduced price models for pretty much every system you could imagine. And obviously, as it's an affiliate link, we get a small cut of it. It doesn't cost you a thing, so you get cheaper models, we get a bit of assistance, which allows us to continue making the videos as well. So thank you for watching, guys, and have a good one. Ta-ra!